Over to you, sir. It's almost 6.
Yes. Uh, Namaste and welcome to Cerimed Talks. Uh, Thank you for joining. I am Shubhatu Chattopadhyay, one of the member of the Cerimed. And it's all very fortunate that's more than a year now. The Cerimed was germinated uh, in Bangalore with the three of us mostly. That time we had myself, Naresh and Anirban Datta. Three of us saw that integrated medicine is such a wonderful subject to deal with the overall wellness of people across the country. And that's why we started something called CERIMED, which stands for Center for Research in Integrated Medicine. I know it's a very big word, but the concept was to bring the awareness to the people across what is integrated medicine, how it really helps. That was the main idea. We have a lot of other plans. I don't think I will talk much on those, but today's talk is which really will show what is integration of science and our ancient wisdom does. When Dr. Manjunath will be one of the eminent speaker will be talking on yoga, this science behind your emotions is so fascinating subject, and we know so little but so much of science in the background. So surely we'll be looking forward his talk, and very fortunate to have Dr. Manjunath today in front of us. Dr. Manjunath, welcome. I will talk briefly a little more on the IWSP and Rich Healthcare because that's our other two arms. Currently we have few programs going on IWSP, that is on holistic wellness. Many of the listeners today who are joining maybe from that activities already the course is running. So it is mostly catered to integrated wellness, science and practice. The same concept, integrating the science, what is the current science, and combining with our ancient wisdom. So people who are participating, they are a regular practitioner of yoga, pranayama, and later on towards the end phase, they will learn also some bit of meditation. So that's our IWSP going on. It's the sixth batch. I'm happy to see that people are really showing so much of interest on this particular program. We have other IWSP programs also related to back pain, and also we are trying to conduct something on hormonal imbalances. So these are all going to come. To support all this thing, we have another interesting organization called Reach Healthcare. They try to support by bringing the teleconsultancy and connecting with the consumer end. Also, we have a remote level setup for some of those healthcares where people of the distance area, neglected area of this country, where people can get access to regular medicine or integrated medicine, so-called, which you are trying to promote. So with this few words, it's my privilege now to introduce our speaker. And after introducing him, I'll request Swamiji to tell a few words about he's our guiding principle actually on the yoga aspect. So we'll hear a few things about yoga, then we'll hear the actual talk. So Dr. Manjunath is currently the Pro Vice Chancellor and the Director of Research in S. Vasha University. That's a very well-known university on Swami Vivekananda's Yoga Anushandhana, and is located in outskirts of Bangalore. He completed his bachelor's, then master's, and PhD in yoga in geriatric medicine from the same university. Also, he got the award of DSC for his great contribution to yoga research. He has more than 26 years of academic research and administrative experience and published 70 research papers in journals of very international repute. His research interests including psychophysiology of yoga, neural correlations of meditations, aging, rehabilitations, very, very important and desired topic for current understanding. And obviously he has guided many PhD, MD, MScs students. Also, he's the editor of International Journal of Yoga and reviewer of many international journals. As you understand, with this kind of background, he's delivered many more lectures across the world, and including Harvard Medical School, Monash University in Australia, Royal College of Medicine, London, Shanghai University of Sports, China. Even China showing a lot of interest, looks like, in yoga of late. Looks like, I don't know what is the current status since last couple of years. Uh, so he's also connected to many of the scientific advisory committee, like a DST, Integrated Medicine Initiative of Niti Aayog, core committee, also yoga accreditation in higher education, the NAC body. So we can see this level of activities is involved is unthinkable. So with this brief backgrounds, I now request Swamiji to tell few words about his yoga, what you are trying to learn from these courses, and the future of those. Swamiji, please, over to you for your comments.
Namaste, my love and namaskars to all our esteemed participants who have joined us on this auspicious occasion where we are very eagerly waiting to listen to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Manjunath. Yoga. Yogat yunjate. By the word yoga, what we understand is many becoming one. And at the same time, we also listen from great teachers and philosophers, saints. They say, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Everything in this universe, whatever we are seeing, everything is Brahman, God, energy. And that is the cause for everything that we are seeing in this universe. Anyway, so there is a philosophy, there is a science, there is also experience. So based on our experience, our rishis, the scientists of the inner world, as quoted by Swami Vivekananda, after their experience, they found out few truths, eternal truths, and they gave in the format of mantras, which we may call as spiritual laws, based on which we can also practice and experience. When many becomes one, what happens? There is harmony, there is joy, there is happiness. When you have got just many sounds, it disturbs us. When it is harmoniously synchronized, and it becomes music. The same sound, if not harmonized, it is a disturbance. When the sound waves harmonized, it's a music, a joy to hear. So, every science which helps to find the oneness in the many diverse things that we are seeing. That's what is called as science of yoga. So we have to learn the science of yoga, practice for ourselves, and enjoy the benefits. One of the main benefits that we are all focusing under the program IWSP, Integrated Wellness Science and Practice, is by practicing yoga, we attain good health. And good health, which means not just the physical health, also the mental health. And people who have understood a little about good physical and mental health know the value of good emotions, which will lead to good intellect. Good emotions leading to good intellect can take us to the highest knowledge, which is already within us. As taught by Swami Vivekananda, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest the divinity by controlling the nature, internal and external. Do it by either work or by worship or by psychic control or by knowledge, one or many, or by all of these, and be free, be free, be free. What is that? Be free from the suffering, dilemma, confusions that we ought to face in our day-to-day life because of the diverse things, because of the non-union. Anyway, we can learn a lot, read a lot, experience a lot, provided you have got a good teacher who speaks on based on the experiences. Today, we are very fortunate to have a wonderful human being, a man with a lot of qualifications. One is external, one is internal. The human character, when I said he's a good man, it shows his inner character. And all the external degrees, what Subratoji has mentioned, shows his capabilities, his working capacities. A noble soul with all the knowledge, doing a great work, whom I know personally. So it's our privilege and joy to have a wonderful man, a good person, a knowledgeable person, a man with a mind of research and with lot of experience. So we have got a wonderful person, Dr. Manjunath, who will be talking on the given topic, yoga, the science of emotions. So if we know how to cultivate good emotions, we develop a good intellect. Dhiyo yonah prachodayat. So I think we as IWSP participants and facilitators and all the members are very happy to have Dr. Manjunath ji, who will be talking on the wonderful topic, and I am very much assured, and I want to assure you all that this will be very useful. Please listen to me carefully and let us enjoy the learning and practice for all our life. With this keynote, now I extend a warm welcome, my love and namaskars to Dr. Manjunath. And now the floor is yours. Please unmute yourself and please, Dr. Manjunath.
Yes.
Yeah.
Namaste to everyone. And first of all, I am blessed today. Swamiji, it's a greatest blessing to actually start the whole proceedings with your blessings. And of course, that's what Swamiji is all about. So he brings in that lineage of Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda to make, to bring in that man-making process. And Swamiji has been responsible for actually bringing that inner strength of many individuals and actually getting that to the people. And I am one of them. It's the blessings of Swamiji with which I'll be sharing some very little experiences, what I have come across in my life, and very small amount of research what we have done. And the world is so big, and the knowledge is, source of knowledge is so wide, and we have a long way to go. But today I'll make an attempt to give you a glimpse of the science behind emotions and bring the perspectives of yoga as the main source to understand the science of emotions. So it's my privilege to be here today, and I'm really grateful to Swamiji and of course Subrata Chattopadhyay ji, Anirban Datta ji, Naresh ji, and of course it's a very special privilege to have Dr. Sushil Sharma ji and many of you who are highly accomplished people in your own fields. And of course, we always feel that when we talk in front of people like Swamiji, there must be a disclaimer. Okay, so the disclaimer what I am making is this is a raw knowledge what I'm going to present, and if you have any further refinement, I think we all need to get back to Swamiji, and Swamiji is going to guide us. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and share my thoughts on this topic of today, which is all about understanding the science behind emotions and bringing.
Dr. Manjunath ji, we have esteemed monk, Buddhistic monk, Bhikkhu Geshe ji, who is our special guest. I had invited him. He has joined. I extend a cordial welcome to our Bhikkhu Geshe ji, who has joined us from Leh. Dr. Manjunath, please continue.
Oh, that's a added blessing for me and all the people present here. Warm welcome to yet another great
Bhikkhu
soul,
Geshe ji.
Bhikkhuji, and we are blessed. So thank you very much. So as Swamiji mentioned, I come from this organization called Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhan Samsthana, where we believe in the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. And for yoga, each and every teaching, whatever Swamiji has given, has a very strong place. And particularly when we want to bring it to education, research, as well as therapeutic application, we have lots to take from here. So the main purpose of understanding yoga in a scientific method and scientific using a scientific modality is not to say that this knowledge was not known earlier. So actually, we are just trying to understand that great knowledge which was already there, and we are trying to make an understanding using the present day language, which is the modern medical science. So having said that, it is very important for all of us to know that emotions are something which with which we all live. So we have this experience. If somebody is not showing up an emotion, we actually tease them, say that, come on, say something and show some expression, show some emotion. And all the time, we are also driven by emotions. So it's not just we live with them, but our actions are driven by our emotions. But emotions are not permanent entities which are tagged with our life, because the word emotion itself, if you just understand, it comes from an attached word called motion. So it is fleeting in nature. So nothing stays permanently except you make that ultimate emotion, which is blissful experience, which is possible only through sadhana. Every action generally leads to the generation of emotions. So today, you are listening to me. We heard Swamiji, and immediately after that, you have multiple other activities to do. And one challenging activity, which many of the cricket lovers are in a way challenged today, is there is an India-Pakistan cricket match in the T20 World Cup. So there is an anxiety, there is an emotional connect with an activity which is either going at present or which is expected to happen in the next couple of minutes or days. So these can generally result in varied feelings. Okay, an emotional experience can result either in a wonderful blissful experience, or it can lead to the opposite experience of pain, anger, and hate. Generally, so we talk in yoga that whatever we do, it should result in a positive emotion. So generally these come and go like a storm. So we all know, particularly in US, you have the very good experience. You predict when the storm is going to come. Yoga also talks about, based on your personality, what kind of a storm can influence an individual, and where do you have a stronger impact and imprint left behind after the storm is gone. But it always, we will never realize what is happening when you are under an emotional circumstance. And only over a period of time, you realize that the impact, whatever my actions were there during that time, had a very strong impact, either positively or negatively. It is always said that emotions are biologically based psychological states, because generally we relate emotions to a psychological state. But for that psychological state to manifest, many biological processes taking place in your body. So these are believed that brought on by neurophysiological changes, and these are variously associated with thoughts, feelings, behavioral responses, and also associated with a degree of either pleasure or displeasure as an endpoint. So there are many other names for emotions. We call individuals with this other synonymous word like temperament. So that individual's temperament is very different. So don't approach him, don't discuss with him certain things, is what we relate. And feelings is the other word. These are also called as powered thoughts. Okay, so a thought is something which comes and goes. But when you power up a thought, that becomes probably an emotion. And also it's related to another terminology called a mindset. So his mindset is something like that. That means he has been or she has been driven by a very strong emotion. So emotions play a very important role in our life. Emotions generally indicate a person's inner attitude. So Swamiji was mentioning that what I am inside is reflected in my actions. Unless you consciously regulate, there is something inside and you demonstrate an action differently. Emotions also prepare a person to face important events in life. So emotions are not always bad. Okay, emotions are always not something to be endowed with as a preparatory mechanism, certainly needed. Imagine we call even anxiety as an part of an emotion, fear as a part of an emotion, etc. So all these things actually help us to prepare better to meet a demanding situation, either immediately or after some time. So another important aspect of emotions is that responding to the feelings of others is believed to be the greatest virtue of an individual. So we say, right, like when somebody is in distress, we don't need to go and do something very big to make that person feel bad, good or bad. So what is needed is just to say or talk in a nicer way. So responding to the feelings of an individual actually brings out that greatest virtue of a human being. So while positive emotions nurture our growth, negative emotions can be destructive in most of the cases. We all know that emotions can arise from several factors and several corners. So first of all, our sense organs contributes, the panchendriyas contribute to the generation of emotions. So be it our eyes, nose, tongue, ear, and skin, the five important sense organs through which we perceive the world, okay, we experience the world. So whenever the information comes from outside, then there is a response to it. So imagine when I see something very pleasant, there is a positive emotion coming in. When I see something really disturbing, suddenly a negative emotion comes in. Same applies to other sense organs, like a wonderful, a very nice smell or a bad smell, something very nice to taste versus something very not so good taste for your tongue, versus what you hear and what you feel. So each one of them are not just going to bring in an information, these are also going to end up in generating emotions and also going to leave the impressions which are going to come again and again. Because once you have seen, once you have heard something, second time when you go through the same experience, there is an inner memory coming and telling you that don't waste any time, because that is going to result in a kind of an experience which is not going to be good. So second important area factor is our very well-known Arishad Vargas, the 6 vices. We know Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. These are the strongest emotions which can destruct any individual at any stage. This applies to any age group and of all genders. Generally, we believe that these are essential for us, for our growth. Imagine, many people always say that unless you have a desire, how do you progress? Okay, I need to have a target. I need to have a kind of goal in my life. Without that desire, nothing motivates me. This is what people talk about. So similarly, at times you have to put up different emotions. Otherwise, people also might take you wrongly, that this guy, whatever happens, he is not going to get influence. So don't worry, take him lightly. Okay, so it's not as simple as that. These are the strongest emotions, and this is something like a chain of reactions, which we are going to see in the next couple of slides. And generally, one of the greatest yoga masters, Sage Patanjali, has described the kleshas, what we talk about, the 5 kleshas, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, are those which drive these strong emotions like Arishad Vargas. So as we all know, avidya and asmita actually play the biggest role. We feel that ignorance, many people say that ignorance is bliss. Unfortunately, that is a way of making ourselves comfortable, but good number of occasions, this impact of ignorance leading to stronger emotional upsurge and resulting in self-destruction has been a common experience. And of course, I don't need to talk about ego, and it is very well said that that's the fundamental source for many of the negative emotions to surface, and that gets carried away further, and hence it's very important. And the last one, the fear of death, is also related, abhinivesha is also related with the fear of change. Our problem in present day is not to progress and not to achieve certain things. Our problem is the anxiety of not losing something what I've already achieved. Okay, so the fear of change certainly contributes. Hence, all these remain as the fundamental sources of our emotions. This is one shloka I always go again and again to understand this process. Dhyayato Vishyan Pumsa Sangasteshu Upajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bijayate Krodhot Bhavati Sammoha Sammoha Smruti Vibramaha Smruti Bramshat Buddhinasha Buddhinashat Pranashyate. In a simple way to understand the source of this, I mean, it's said that it's a wonderful chain of events which result in you moving from normal being to sort of a self-destruction. So for everything, the fundamental source is repeated thinking. Okay, so who uses this shloka probably the best in a positive tone is our advertisement agencies. Okay, so they know that repeated thinking is needed for you to get attached with a thought. And when you get attached with a thought, then you once again superimpose the same thought, then it will become a desire. And when desire is very strong, you do all that is possible to fulfill your desire. And Bhagavad Gita says, taking it to the next level, actually, when your desire is not fulfilled, it results in a chain of destructive events, like you are angry for not able to achieve what you are supposed to achieve. And that leads subsequently to delusion. And of course, it is very clearly said that it is going to destroy your cognitive processes, resulting in distorted memory. And of course, very important, what is special for human being, we lose our discriminating power and we lose ourselves. So probably this is something amazing to understand, because repeated thinking remains as the source, and whatever happens subsequently can be broken at any stage, because people do ask that how do I actually manage this emotional upsurges through yoga. So yoga has so many wonderful tools, be it the Ashtanga yoga or be it the individual practices within each one of them. And they are designed to actually break this chain at different levels. So that's what we are going to see in the next couple of few slides. It is also said that we are all born with this amazing 5-layered component called Panchakoshas. We look at ourselves as human beings with a physical entity, but that is what is called as an Annamaya Kosha. So what is seen externally. So when you go little inward, then you have the Pranamaya Kosha, the energy body, then the Manomaya Kosha, which is actually the mental sheath, then the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the higher knowledge or intuition, and of course, the true sense of an individual is seen deep inside. That's why when you do yoga or do anything, it is always said that it is an inward journey. During COVID, all of us have this experience. During lockdown, we all wanted to go out. And many, including I heard some of the talks of Swamiji, they said that when you cannot go outside, God has given you a wonderful opportunity. Now you are locked up in your house, go inward. So that's where you can touch your true soul, true self. And the problem starts always, as long as in your Anandamaya Kosha, absolutely there is no issue. So the problem starts with a combination of Vijnanamaya Kosha and Manomaya Kosha. When you have higher knowledge to its fullest extent, absolutely nothing can create any confusion in you. Only issue starts at the Manomaya Kosha. And when the Manomaya Kosha is impacted, it comes outward and it impacts your Pranamaya Kosha and results in something which is visible physically, what we call it as a Vyadi. So this is also used as a wonderful way of understanding how with simple mental issue or psychological disturbances, we end up getting physical health problems, Adija Vyadi, what we call it as. So it's also essential for us to understand, don't neglect what happens at the mental level. That's why people say that relax your mind. Relaxation of mind can take care of lots of things happening in your body. That is the reality. It's also said in Bhagavad Gita that emotions are related to your personality types. What you can see here, that somebody who has a sattvic personality will be endowed with a balanced, contented, happy, and loving personality. So this individual will have a predominance of these virtues. And whereas a Rajasic personality will always have a sort of a dissatisfied being, and will be supported by greed, jealousy, intolerance, and sadness, etc. While a Tamasic personality has this lethargy, depression, disinterest, indifference, all of them as special qualities. So understanding this will help us in bringing a change. So if my personality is tamasic in nature, I mean, I don't feel like getting up early in the morning. When I get up, when I have to get up, I always postpone. I want to start yoga. I go and purchase everything and I am ready for the next day. But the next day comes early morning, my tamas pulls me back to say that, okay, sleep for today, tomorrow you can start. And at the same time, you can be easily pulled down to have a sort of a low feeling again and again. Depression can come very easily, and you will be disinterested in many activities. So once I understand that I have a particular personality type, then you need to use techniques which can actually take me from that personality type to a sattvic personality type, which is all very well described. These are some of the scientific studies done to understand what exactly happens with your emotions correlating with your personality type. And emotions also play a very important role in our daily living, as we already saw. It has been, though we know about it, emotional states, what have been identified as something important in everyday life, which have been described in this particular scientific publication, are happiness, sadness, anger, fear, love, disgust, anxiety, etc. So we all go through this on a day-to-day basis, not just once in a while. And at the same time, it is said that fear and anxiety are the most important aspects of emotions, which actually helps an individual or an organism to prepare themselves for a potential source of danger. So as we said, this also includes range of physical processes in the body. We all heard about stress response, right? So whenever I am under stress, so my body responds, many chemicals, many hormones are secreted in my body. So if you don't allow the body to come back to normalcy, that subsequently continues, and that can create range of health issues in an individual. Today, all the non-communicable diseases are somewhere connected with stress and lifestyle. So fear and anxiety actually help us to prepare. Once we are prepared and we can handle a situation well, and then we allow our physical and mental entities to come back to their baseline and normalcy, then life goes very smoothly. It is also said that as we were looking at the Bhagavad Gita description, all emotions are born of desires. The desire is also not just to achieve something, not just to acquire or get something, but it is also caused by a feeling of imperfection. Imperfection is not necessarily a sort of a feeling of not having something, but it is also telling that in comparison to someone else, so I am not perfect. I don't have certain things. So I want to achieve that, for which I need to work. So the desire starts from there. Imperfection or fulfillment is also a feeling which is coming from within. So the stronger the desire, stronger the emotional experience what each one of us are going to have. We all know it very well that when desires are not fulfilled, it results in anger, and we start envying people who already have that. For example, everyone wants to attain certain things in their lives. You want to have all that what you see, be it a building, be it a whatever interiors you want to have in your house, and whatever you see outside, like a mobile phone to a car to all that what appears to be something wonderful in the material life. But when I am not able to fulfill that, one way I get angry on myself, and second thing, I start having a feeling of jealousy on others who are able to afford to get them. It also results in dissatisfaction. So our biggest problem is we have to be contented is what we talk in yoga. But most of the time when desire is not fulfilled, it results in dissatisfaction. And the whole process of suffering starts from there. Because it is very well said in one of the Upanishads that the whole purpose of life is sukha prapti or dukkha nivrutti. So what we say is everything what we do in our life, it is to be comfortable or to reach a stage of happiness or dukkha nivrutti. So we do all that to avoid or prevent misery. So when we say that when something is not achievable, then the other side of the coin turns up and suffering starts from there. We feel that when desire is fulfilled, the end product is happiness and success. It's not always true, because when desire is fulfilled, it takes you to the other level to test you. Number one is that it's not going to end there. Okay, so when I'm having an Android phone, I have a desire that I want to get an iPhone. So okay, you got an iPhone 10, and now iPhone is, the Apple company is very quick in producing the new versions. So Apple 11, 12, 13 has come already. So then you always feel that, okay, I have to upgrade myself. I have to move forward. I have to get more and more. To go to one to the other, you need more money. You need more affluence. So you think that we can proceed in a way, the way it is needed, only by satisfying our greed. And at times, it is not going to end there. We end up having arrogant. Okay, so for example, I feel that I have something better than the other person, that brings in arrogance. And also at times it brings in a madness. Okay, like I start showing up, and I have the feeling of not caring anybody else. So lots of other feelings also emerge. And finally, something what I was talking about, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, that is the key factor. We might achieve whatever we want in our life. Our emotions can play again and again. The biggest problem comes in that phase where you have that fear of losing something that you already possess. Okay, so this leads to that intellectual discrimination and emotional and psychological distress. So the whole journey happens, and we always end up moving from a very well contented human being to a completely discontented and completely lost human being. So having looked at multiple philosophical components, various scientific evidences, let us come down a bit to the physical being, because that's what neuroscience looks at all the emotions as, because it is believed that each emotion has got a placement in your brain. So there's a clear understanding of emotions can regulate. Your brain can regulate your emotions. So there are specific areas in the brain which can regulate each one of those important emotions. And also there are specific chemicals which can induce the process of initiating an emotional activity. So this I'm not going to the detail, but just for your information, that there are specific areas in the brain. Generally, if you believe this, these are the two parts almost in the central part of your brain, which is also called as an emotional cortex. Okay, limbic system. Many areas within that limbic system control and regulate your emotions. And not just that limbic system, there are several other parts of the brain also contribute either for the initiation or for further regulation of your emotions. What you see here, the emotion fear is identified at this part of the brain called amygdala, while disgust has been identified with anterior insula. Similarly, anger has been identified with this frontal part of the brain called orbitofrontal cortex, and sadness is associated with this part of the brain called anterior cingulate. See, it's very also important to understand these parts of the brain also contribute to several very important functions of our body. The anterior cingulate is that part of the brain which actually regulates attentional processes. Similarly, frontal lobe is the one which is believed to be something which gave us that speciality compared to animals, what we call it as a character cortex, where all our special human characters, that power of discrimination is being regulated from this part of the brain. And you can also see like happiness, once again, rooted to some parts, while the pain is rooted through, apart from the anterior cingulate, the central processing unit, what you call it as the thalamo-hypothalamic areas, they regulate mainly the issue connected with your pain. What is also important is to know discrete emotion. Like, okay, so how do you actually pick up that which is needed for you, that which is not needed for you? How do I respond and how do I manage it? So these are the parts of the brain which regulate your discrete emotion. And also this part is very important to bring in a regulation once the emotion is initiated. Okay, see, I am angry now and I keep shouting at everybody at home. And how do I stop doing it? So then this part of the brain, which is also called as the character cortex, as I said, it starts telling that, come on, you are a matured human being and you know everything in life. This is a mere simple issue. You don't need to react to this extent. So probably there are other sides you better understand. So this kind of discriminative power comes from there. Hence, it has been said that initiation of emotion is one part, but regulation of that subsequently is also very important. Behavioral adaptations also play a very important role when we really want to use our emotions positively. We always look at the all the frontal and central parts of the brain, but also the back of your brain, there is something called visual cortex, which plays an important role when a sensory modality has been used to actually initiate an emotional activity. So sensory inputs, particularly coming from visual input, has its impact on this part of the brain. So if everything is in the brain and if everything is in our mind and if everything is regulated as a cascade of events, how do we manage them? So here is the greatest contribution of India, the system of yoga, the great science and philosophy, which actually brings in amazing techniques to handle various aspects, including our emotions. So these are some of the research studies done, but I'm not going to talk of the research behind it, but I'm going to say, when you use different techniques, is there an evidence to suggest that those areas in the brain which are connected with your emotions can also be regulated and modified through different yoga practices? This one study published in 2011 in International Journal of Yoga showed that chanting Om produces limbic deactivation. So we know that a couple of times where there is an over-exaggerated activation of specific areas of your limbic system results in very strong negative emotions. So this has been demonstrated that when you chant Omkara, this produces similar effects as that of vagus nerve stimulation used as a modern treatment to manage depression and epilepsy. We use not just Omkara meditation, as Swamiji was mentioning, mantra is one of the amazing contributions what we have to regulate multiple issues. So when mantra meditation was done, it has shown to trigger global inhibition. Global here talking about the whole brain, multiple areas in the brain. We think that it actually stimulates. So this is an amazing study where it was demonstrated that it actually puts off many of these switches and puts on only those important switches which are needed in your brain for you to do meditation and to calm down. We also have seen several studies where asanas are used, pranayama is used along with meditation to bring in changes at different parts of your brain. So these two studies demonstrated that when asanas along with meditation, pranayama along with meditation also can influence those important areas like the hippocampus and also primary visual cortex, which are involved in emotional regulation. Is it only the functional entity of the brain which can be modified by yoga? No. There are a couple of studies which demonstrated that you can even change the structural entities of the brain. So this one particular study demonstrated that hippocampal dimensions can be significantly influenced. The size of a specific area of the brain can be enlarged if you are a male or female meditator. In this study, they have compared gender, but they have demonstrated that whether it is male or female, if you do meditation, if you do practice of yoga, it can actually influence your brain structure significantly. So as I was mentioning, so this particular study looked at comparison between the two genders and also looked at meditators in comparison to control individuals who have not done meditation, demonstrating that the hippocampal dimensions were thicker in both these individuals. There were also other studies who have looked at when you practice meditation, so you can probably cultivate lots of positive emotions and you can retain emotional stability and mindful behavior. Once again, it is not just a psychological study. They have looked at specific areas in the brain, and orbitofrontal and hippocampal areas have been shown to significantly get activated when you do, while other areas of the brain are inhibited. And many times we do either a directive meditation or non-directive meditation. There are hundreds of meditation techniques. We all get confused at times which techniques to pick and what is needed for me. So in the West, they try with all kinds of meditation techniques. So one called non-directive meditation, when they compared it with a concentrative type of meditation, also compared with regular rest, they saw that extensive activation of brain areas associated with those areas which regulate memory. Okay, so be it on the temporal lobe, be it on various other parts, also related to episodic memory, like the events, what happen either on a day-to-day basis, to convert them into a short-term memory to long-term memory, or when it happens over a period of time, do you really want to retain it for your better use subsequently? And this particular study also looked at reactivity to negative emotions. So if you are a yoga practitioner, the way you react to negative emotions was significantly different compared to non-yoga practitioners. So you can see there was reduced reactivity in specific areas of the brain for negative images when the people practiced yoga compared to non-practitioners. And lots of positive emotions, be it hope, faith, forgiveness, joy, compassion, etc., have been shown to increase when you practice yoga. And meditation also has been shown to activate brain areas involved with empathy, happiness, pleasant feelings, etc. We have this question, how long should I do meditation to attain some of these things? So there is no timeline for this. Do I need to do 1 day, 2 day, or 1 year, 2 years, etc.? This is one study where I looked at people practicing meditation for a little longer than 30 years. So very rarely you see long-term practitioners and its impact on the brain and your emotions. So this particular one demonstrated that those who practiced yoga for quite long time, they had an amazing control on the cardiorespiratory centers in the brainstem. And it also improved parasympathetic effects. See, we all know if you want to relax, you want to be away from stress, you actually need your sympathetic nervous system effect to be withdrawn and parasympathetic nervous system effect to be brought in. It sets in an amazing amount of relaxation to us. So it was also demonstrated that a single session of yoga, okay, if you ask this question, okay, I'm not able to do regularly, is practicing yoga any day going to have an impact? Yes. That doesn't mean that you don't continue practicing. You can have some benefits, like the inhibitory neurotransmitter called GABA increases when you do yoga, be it a single session. And when you increase your practice for a longer duration, similar effects were seen. That means you can sustain these effects when you do it for a longer period. So just few applications I wanted to quickly give you. You can use it in all age groups. You can use it in multiple health conditions where emotions are disturbed. So you can improve your concentration, efficiency, interpersonal relationships, etc. And you can reduce tension and fatigue. You can improve also a range of other activities related to hyperactive nature of an individual. We have these two as the major issues today, anxiety and depression. So practicing yoga has demonstrated that you can actually manage your anxiety very well. You can prevent depression. And they have also demonstrated through measuring specific hormones and chemicals in the body, like stress hormone, cortisol. And it has also been shown to improve mood, attention, mental focus, etc. Children also would have lots of emotional upsurges. So children and middle-aged adolescents certainly need yoga, because today we are putting them on hyper demanding situations. Like everybody wants their children to be scoring very high, and studies have become a punishment. So if you give yoga to them, probably they can handle their pressure much better. And there are lots of other things mentioned over here related to anxiety. Even during COVID, we all experienced, not just the children, but the school employees. The teachers have demonstrated lots of issues, and yoga has been very beneficial to them. Also, those who were frontline workers, and they had lots of anxiety and stress, and yoga was given to these individuals. And this is an earlier paper what I'm talking, but we have done lots of other studies to demonstrate. Another situation where emotional upsurges are really bad and you have to take care is during pregnancy. So women go through lots of anxious moments, and practicing yoga in pregnant women has been shown to be highly beneficial in managing several of them. So this is just out of the box utility of yoga in armed forces, because we always think all those who are in normal situations, we have emotions and we have problems, but they have much serious issues, and yoga has demonstrated. This is one very interesting situation where professionals, okay, like they are known to have something called performance-related anxiety. So one special study demonstrated that yoga and meditation can reduce this performance-related anxiety as well. And of course, in family caregivers. Just I'm summing up with few practices, those who are interested, because we always see that yes, theory is very important, but what should I do to manage? There are several things, but very few things I'm going to share with you. One module is to use the conventional yoga, either a combination of asana, pranayama, meditation, and relaxation. And if you ask me which asanas, which pranayama for emotional regulation, so it has been emphasized that you do those practices which are backward bending. Okay, so spinal backward stretch has been shown to have a stronger impact on the parasympathetic nervous system after you release the posture. So the combination of them, Padahastasana, Ardha Chakrasana, the forward bending was after that you do the backward bending, Ardha Chakrasana. Similarly, sitting posture, Shashankasana and Ustrasana. And in once again in lying down supine position, Pavana Muktasana and Setu Bandhasana. And in once again you do Simhasana, where it is said that you do this Simha, I mean the lion roaring sound, you should actually throw away all that which is constricting you. Okay, that emotional binding, what is there, is supposed to be thrown out through this practice. So this is just an indication for you. The first two Padahastasana is, then of course Shashankasana and Ustrasana, then Setu Bandhasana and Pavana Muktasana, and of course the Simhasana and the Shavasana part of it. Lots of pranayama and kriyas can also be used, very effective in emotional regulation. Kapalabhati, which has been made famous today with lots of utility, is shown to be very useful technique. But you have to take care when you have other comorbidities like hypertension, etc. And there is one unique solution, Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, alternate nostril breathing. Inhale from the left, exhale from right, inhale from right, exhale from left. So this is one round. So this practice, as slowly as possible, as long as you can do, is going to have an amazing impact on your emotional health. Another practice very well known is Ujjayi Pranayama. Ujjayi Pranayama, once again, is shown to have very good impact on anxiety. And resonance breathing, particularly Brahmari, has been shown to actually control your anger and set an amazing amount of calmness in you. And these are just the images for that. And the last part is meditation. You can select any meditation of your choice, but scientifically few studies have been done on cyclic meditation, Om meditation, and mindfulness. So this is movement-based meditation technique, cyclic meditation, where you do cycles of stimulation followed by relaxation. When you do this based on Mandukya Upanishad, when you do that, it takes you to very deep level of relaxation. So one set of stimulation through an asana, and then you do a quick relaxation technique. Second set of stimulation, and then you do a set of deep relaxation. So when you do this, it actually takes you to very deep level of relaxation. And of course, in yoga, we believe if you want to really do emotional culture, Bhakti Yoga is something which is followed for ages. Okay, so because that's where we bring in the concept of Tyaga and Seva, and also surrender. Our biggest problem, what we saw as ego and range of other factors, can be manipulated significantly through Bhakti Yoga, because the feeling of surrender will come only once we start adopting them. In the West, they also use today Kirtan Yoga, which is the other name for Bhakti Yoga. And the three factors, Prema, Tyaga, and Seva, these are those positive emotions which we want to see. And finally, we all know it very well. Emotions are temporary, but somehow we get carried away and we get stuck with it. If we don't let them go, those can permanently destroy us. the best way to manage them is move all these negative emotions, convert them into positive emotions, and yoga is one tool which can do that. So you convert, bring in these positive emotions, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. And once these emotions are there, be friendly with everyone, then you don't have those comparisons. Have that compassion, then you have lots of things to offer. Okay, so I respond to somebody, I actually there for somebody's need, and be joyful, because finally the joy what we get is not in the material what we take from outside, what we see from outside. Joy is always inside. One example, our founder Dr. Nagendra always says that imagine you are given a gulab jamun after a long time, so you thoroughly enjoy it, and immediately somebody offers you the second gulab jamun, the enjoyment quotient reduces. A third and fourth and fifth gulab jamun, then gradually you start feeling that I cannot eat any more gulab jamuns, and you start hating it. Okay, so the objective way of having joy is short-lived, and the joy has to come from inside. And once you are actually caught with the external things, you will never enjoy that joy within you. And finally, to remain neutral. That's the sattvic nature, what we talk, balanced way of being. So nothing can affect me. When it is said so nicely that we all go through this process. Shitoshna Sukhadukkeshu Labo Labo Jaya Ajaya. So there are events in our life which test us each and every time. That individual who is balanced can handle any situation and also give a wonderful environment for all other people surrounding us. Saying that, I thank everyone for giving me this opportunity, and blessed by the presence of two spiritual masters today, Swamijis, and also the team of CIRIMED and IWSP. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentations and such a mesmerizing subject to hear, and there is no end to it. But as you said, there is a time when you have to stop. But obviously, I thank you very much from my bottom of my heart, from our team members and all the participant. We never expected so many people will join in this kind of difficult times, especially on today on Sunday evening. There are a few questions. I'll request Anirban, if he's around, can start asking few of them. But one question I have, I thought I would start off telling that you told obviously yoga will help to control and bring a balance. But is it elastic in nature? That means if I stop practicing, it goes down to the same position, or it stays back again, I can bring back. What is the status?
Yeah, certainly. This is not that straightforward elastic nature where as long as you are doing, you have an impact, and the minute you stop doing it, it's going to come back to the same place. The impact of yoga, the memory of the impact of yoga is very strong. That's why it is said, early childhood, you bring in some samskaras to children. Okay, so I'm talking of various activities which are all considered under the domain of yoga. So similarly, imagine, that's why I said, even if you do that one day of yoga, and that imprint is going to remain. Neurophysiologically, whatever changes your body has recognized, it's going to record that. And next time when you do it, the beginning starting point will be much different. Okay, so certainly it's going to help people, though you discontinue, and when you start doing it again, you are not going to come down and start. You have a place to start with.
Excellent. So Anirban, can you put up some of this question came in the chat box?
Yes, sir. I think I can spot one question from Jayashri. She's asking, is it possible to experience Anandamaya Kosha by us, a common man?
Than me, may have to look at Swamiji to answer this, because in my way, then I will ask Swamiji to give the proper answer. In my way, experiencing Anandamaya Kosha is that being with your true self, okay, without any of those frills attached to it, which we can experience across the day when we can actually look inward. It is possible. But the true Anandamaya Kosha, to remain there and to make it as a habit to remain there, is that challenge, because we are all driven outward. So the rest I request Swamiji to add to it or enlighten us.
Yeah, very well answered. Yeah, at the outset, I say, yes, very much. And we are already experiencing that Anandamaya Kosha. Without that experience, we cannot survive physically, mentally, what we call as body-mind complex, so-called human being. So without the touch of that Anandamaya Kosha, this body cannot exist. As very well said, knowledge, being aware that I am that Ananda itself. So that's what all the practices help us. So when we do Brahmari, what we do? Close the eyes, close the ears, chant Om with a humming sound. What we did? We stopped our sensory organs which are running outside after that Rasagulla. And we started enjoying the joy within by becoming more aware. Yes, our Rishi Sampradaya, what we call Rishi Parampara, Shrunvanta Vishve Amritasya Putraha. So we are the children of immortal bliss, and we are very much having with us. That should be our sadhana. All our practices should be guided to find that joy and just becoming aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji. That was a wonderful one. I have a question from, I think, which mentions that why emotion varies from one person to another for the same given situation. Doctor?
Yeah, one reason, as I mentioned, is based on our personality trait. Okay, the gunas which are predominant with us. And of course, you can go to the subtle explanations as well. These are also driven by the karmic principles, what we are all come up with from one life to the other. But when you look at the gunas, certainly that is the differentiator. Okay, like I have certain positive things, like a type A personality, what we call it as a Rajasic person. Okay, so you have so much of energy in you. Okay, but at the same time, a Rajasic person is drawn very quickly to do more and more activities, which will actually take him to fatigue very quickly. Whereas a Tamasic person, where it is very difficult for you to make that person do activity. But even though when you put a lot of effort in making that person do the activity, then also the end product can be different, because the interest in doing that activity itself may be much lesser compared to a Rajasic person. So that way, in a way, the gunas are one of the primary factors which determine the differentiation of emotional experience.
Thank you, Doctor. We have one question from Mr. Satyaprakash. He says, asks that whether biologically existence of Panchakosha is confirmed, or is it only yogic experience, or is there a recognition per se?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have any biological proof for the existence of Panchakosha as a 5-layered existence of an individual. attempts are being made. I mean, I'm talking purely with the understanding of present day instrumentation to actually scan you and tell. Okay, so can I scan physically? I can look at, I can also scan inside. I can take my blood sample to look at my DNA. Everything is visible. Attempts are being made from lots of Russian scientists to actually capture the pranamaya kosha in a way. So there are instruments called gas discharge visualizers or photonic imaging instruments, which are supposed to measure or picture an individual's pranamaya kosha or energy fields. Beyond that, we don't have any physical references to demonstrate. I can actually see the Manomaya Kosha or Vijnanamaya Kosha or Anandamaya Kosha. What people use are set of questionnaires, set of questions which are actually giving an impression about an individual's subjective experience and feeling. So, and beyond that, it's all an individual's feeling. We don't have instrumentation to measure. But of course, as Swamiji was mentioning, we had that amazing perception of greatest personalities earlier, where everything was visible and you can expand yourself. Though we are telling go inward, and an individual can expand himself. That's why you can actually see what is happening in some other place. Now cricket match is going to start. We are all waiting for satellite images. But if it was an earlier experience where you can stretch your Manomaya Kosha and you can see what is happening elsewhere, and such references are there in our scriptures. So that's the way I look at it.
Well said, Doctor. There is one question from Rajdeep. He asks, does Maharshi Patanjali's talk about brain in his Yoga Sutras? Does he talk? Or what are the sources of emotion as per him, as according to him?
Of course, once again, when Swamiji is here, I always avoid talking about it, but in a smaller way, my understanding I'm going to share. Number one, as I mentioned, Sage Patanjali spoke everything about mind. Okay, so the whole process of yoga has been defined as Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Okay, so the 5 mental modifications. When you look at them, Pramana, Viparya, Vikalpa, Nidra, Smrutayaha, as the 5 mental modifications, its impact on your emotions have been very well described. So that's when Sage Patanjali also brought in the influencing factors, what we call it as stress-producing factors as kleshas. So avidya, smita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So, and of course, the chain of reactions, what happens when you move from one prescribed emotion to the other, and what happens in your body, okay, physically, like not specifically talking about the brain, but in the body, what all can happen, okay, chitta vikshepa. So these are also defined. So when you are over exhausted, when you are over anxious, when you are on the same thought again and again, lots of things can happen in your body, including all those initial symptoms, which are not even described in present day medical understanding. It can be as simple as feeling heavy, and you are having tremors, you are having your heart beating faster, and you are having confusions in your mind. Many of these things are defined very well under Chitta Vikshepas. And the relationship between body and mind, how this from a mind, it percolates into your body and it affects, also has been very well described by Sage Patanjali. So if we can go through this, we will have lots of clues which probably we haven't understood in the present day neuroscience, but that's what we do in our research. We take these shlokas, try to explore through present day neuroscience.
Fantastic. I've been to your research center, Doctor, and as Dr. Subroto was mentioning, and it's an amazing work. I think many of these things, what you said, are evidenced over there. So one more question I think we have from Dr. Mrityunjay. He is our esteemed colleague, and he talks about, sir, will you please tell me the different things which keep each kosha is healthy. I feel it is different for each koshas, like food for Annamaya kosha, breathing for Pranamaya kosha, etc.
Yeah, very true. I mean, there are very well established methodologies to handle or to nurture your different koshas. In a way, what you see Patanjali Yoga Sutras, if you can just pick that, that is an amazing way of moving from one kosha to the other kosha. So you have you have basically the initial things, yamas and niyamas, asana. So these are some moral code of conduct, what can actually empower you in the beginning, and then doing lots of physical activity, including asanas, can nurture your physical body. And when you move to Pranamaya Kosha, that is where pranayama comes into picture. And then when you go to Manomaya Kosha, you have the Pratyahara and particularly Dharana and Dhyana. And when, of course, you go beyond that, like Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha, that is where it is so beautifully explained that there are different stages of Samadhi. So we feel that there is one state called Samadhi, and once you attain that, you are there. There are so many different stages where it can take you to that ultimate Anandamaya Kosha, to retain you in that Dharma Mega Samadhi. And that's the description what has been given. But one word of additional word is that these are not watertight compartments. So don't think that for physical body, you have to do only asana, loosening exercises, Surya Namaskar, etc. For Pranamaya Kosha, these are all connected. Okay, so it goes back and forth. It's like sleep. Okay, you have your non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep and dream sleep. So it keeps going in and out kind of it, and you nurture these koshas through each one of them and together. So that's what my understanding is.
Thank you, Doctor. I think one last question, which I think I missed out earlier, was Jayashree is asking again, I think, fear of losing and fear of death in elderly. How to overcome it? How to help them?
Direct answer is we should have a session next from Swamiji because that's the best way to understand these two concepts. But in a simpler way, my smaller understanding is fear of losing is something which bothers everybody today. Okay, we are in a society of race. Okay, the biggest problem is we want to achieve, and we want to achieve much quickly. Okay, I remember my parents' generation, they had a target like you get your children married and you build a house at the time of your retirement. Okay, by the time of retirement, you have to achieve those two things. But now the concepts are too different, and everybody wants to achieve all that much quickly. Okay, so in this process, we don't give time for our own understanding of what exactly is that fear of losing. Okay, so earlier they had a life experience with them. So here it is too quick. Whenever something happens negative, we think that I have lost. You see so many youngsters committing suicides, so many other middle-aged individuals losing their hope in life. It's all purely because of this fear of losing. Fear of death in the elderly, certainly it has been yoga philosophy is something wonderful. My whole doctoral work was on geriatric medicine. And what I understood is that particular shloka of Bhagavad Gita, it talks about Nainam Chindanti Shastrani, Nainam Dahati Pavaka. I mean, this body can be actually destroyed, but that pure soul is not something which will be destroyed. And you have to be so contented with this life, and you have to prepare. So, I mean, you have to create so much of positive bank balance to carry to the next life, whereby your starting point itself will be good with your good karmas. So these kind of understandings can actually make you slowly come out of that fear of losing this body in this life.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Manjunath. I think we have completed all the questions. Over to you, Subrata.
Yes, thank you for that wonderful session, plus the Q&A. That is also equally amazing. And I expect now is Dr. Sushil Sharma still around? If you can simply make a concluding remarks before we close the session. Dr. Sushil Sharma, please.
Thank you, Dr. Manjunath. Very complex topic and so many different fields. And you so beautifully put all that in just one capsule for us to swallow. So it was a delight to hear you. We learned a lot. And honestly, this was the highlight of the day. And the second highlight is coming after the cricket match.
Very well said, Dr. Sharma. So, and I really appreciate and thanks for this beautiful evening, and we'll surely cherish for a long time, and we'd like to keep it up. Our association of SERIMED with your beautiful research ongoing there for many more days to explore further into this.
Subrata ji, may I add a little bit? If
Sure.
Bikuji from Leh is still in the audience, can we hear a couple of words from him also to
Sure.
enlighten us?
What is his connection, sir? We are not able to see him actually.
Teshi.
With a J, you can see with a J.
Naresh, you can make him the host, co-host.
I think we are not able to see him.
No, he's not there.
Maybe connectivity issues. Yeah. He was there.
Yeah,
Okay.
from Leh, possibly.
We
Okay.
are just on time, sir, for the match.
But I just wanted to conclude by saying that Swamiji, it was one of the greatest opportunities what I had to just share some thoughts in front of you. If there were anything I have said which is beyond the true science of yoga, please enlighten us, and my apologies for that. And this is a small attempt made by me with some little experience what I have, and your blessings are going to guide me a long way in my life. Thank you.
Absolutely, it was a joy to listen to you. I thoroughly enjoyed the session. Thanks, there was no disturbance through my mobile, though it was kept in a very silent mode. And I thoroughly enjoyed the talk. Every message you gave based on the science behind it, and at the same time bringing in the highest yogic ideas, which we call as Sukshma Vichara, subtle. So bringing those subtle thoughts, ideas and ideals, and presenting it in this scientific terms, that was really wonderful. Whatever you have said is perfectly all right, and we look forward to have more sessions. And I'm proud to mention there were many eminent people, like some professors from AIMS Rishikesh. They all sent me personal message. They were also extremely happy to attend the session. As you said, man is a basically emotional being. So every human being needs to listen to such talks, read, understand, refine our thoughts, refine our emotions, so that we ultimately enjoy our real self. That's what our all struggle and sadhana is about. So we're all fellow beings moving forward, putting our efforts together. And really, I appreciate, and you have taken your valuable time to be with us, and we look forward to have more sessions with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Pranam Swamiji. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank
Doctor.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Manjunath.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Manjunath, for this wonderful session. With this, and I'll also thanks all the participants for joining in a big number. We'll conclude today's SERIMED talk. Thank you again.
Thank
Namaste.
you. Thanks, sir.
Namaste.